striking information from Michelle. And she started off talking about poverty in the United States, and my one-page handout drills down on that a little bit. I'm going to talk mostly about housing and community development, but really the starting place, I think, for thinking about these issues is poverty. And the fact that in Cincinnati, like many other places in the United States, low and even moderate income people are being left behind. The economy's doing great, right? Unemployment's low, wages are going up, that's what we hear, right? But still, the poverty rate in Cincinnati is increasing, not decreasing. And that's incredibly important. It's an incredibly important issue locally here in the greater Cincinnati area and statewide, because it's, poverty remains a huge problem throughout the state. In giving you this headline from the Enquirer, the first one about poverty rates in Cincinnati, I should acknowledge that we have a child poverty initiative in town, and I don't mean to demean the efforts of that group. I think they're making a sustained effort to try to come up with some solutions. But what we really need, of course, is not some piecemeal approach. We need some really major changes in order to address the structural unemployment that we have in our economy and the continuing poverty and near poverty that so many people are suffering. Turning to housing specifically, so I'm sorry to have more bad news about Cincinnati, but unfortunately Cincinnati is in the top 10 when it comes to evictions in cities in the United States, and that's a huge problem. Evictions totally mess up families. They are terrible for they disrupt the education of children. They get in the way of people keeping their jobs. They're extremely costly. Some of you have had the opportunity to read Matt Desmond's book about Evicted. And as he says, evictions are not just a result of poverty, they actually cause poverty. So we have to do something about that. When you think about the fact that low and moderate income people are being left behind, even though our economy is doing pretty well, it's not surprising that eviction rates would be increasing. And they are, unfortunately. That brings me to the third headline I have, which is about the gap in affordable housing. There's a tendency, I think, out there for people to tend to think that very low-income people all live in public housing. Nothing could be further from the truth. Only 1 out of every 4 families who are eligible for public housing or similar kinds of programs get that housing. There's a huge shortage, and Cincinnati, unfortunately, here I go with more bad news, right? Is right up there with all the problems. We have a gap of 40,000 units of affordable housing in Cincinnati and Hamilton County combined. That's a huge number, and instead of more affordable housing, my office finds itself working with tenants and tenant groups trying to preserve the existing public housing. It's a fight just to keep what we have, let alone add to the more affordable housing, which is what we really need to be doing. So, there is that huge threat. And then I'd like to say this also because only 1 in 4 families are living in affordable, decent housing.
Yes.
So I live in subsidized housing, right? My family, we own our home, and every year I get a big tax break based on my real estate taxes and also the interest I pay on the mortgage on our home. And I'm not going to forego that. I'm greedy. I'll take my deduction, right? But the estimates are nationwide. The cost in terms of taxes for these deductions for homeowners is somewhere between 150 and 170 billion dollars. That is 4 times the federal budget for public housing and similar programs. So our priorities are messed up. I have a pretty good income. I get subsidized. Lots of other people don't. And then finally, you can't talk about poverty and equality and housing and community development without talking about the race issue. And so my last headline references the recent study a couple years ago by the Urban League about the fact that in many ways there are really two Cincinnatis. The African American population and the white population. Economically, as a group, African Americans are still behind. African Americans were more affected by the mortgage crisis and lost their homes disproportionately compared to whites. And I know this is Cincinnati, and we don't like to talk about difficult things, but race is a huge issue, and it's something that we can't sweep under the rug. So some food for thought. Thank you.
David Altman, who wears many hats, but he's not only a community leader, but as a lawyer, he's defended average people against the corporate world, one of the few that do that.